I think we are uniquely positioned to be able to build these types of AI models. Hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation to speak and tell you about our work. Shaiste Asif previously mentioned that we should be disrupting healthcare, and I fully agree, and I believe the way that it will be done is with data and new types of data that we'll be measuring. And we saw the beginning of this in the year 2000 with the publication of the human genome, because that took us from knowing about just a handful of disease and genetic variants involved in them to where we are 20-something years after the publication of the human genome, where we now know for every single disease hundreds, sometimes even thousands of genetic variants that are involved. But at the same time, we know that our genetics is only part of the story, and it's only part of the story because it doesn't take into account any of the environmental factors, our diet, our lifestyle, anything else that happens to us after we're born. And for that reason, we created what we call the Human Phenotype Project, where the idea is to measure the human genome, but also everything else that we can around it, and I'll show you in a moment what we measure. And we believe that this is how we'll be able to eventually use this data to predict disease ahead of time, change the trajectory of people ongoing to disease, dramatically lower the cost of drug development, and eventually leading to AI-based remote healthcare on your smartphone. So how do we do this? At the Institute, we created a clinic where we do currently the most comprehensively profiling that was ever done on a large group of people. And before people come in, they fill out hundreds of questionnaires about their lifestyle, medical background, family history of disease. They also upload their entire electronic health records, so we know everything about their past. Once they come to the clinic, we do extensive measurements, clinical measurements that include body measurements, hand grip strength, various cardiovascular measurements, ECG, voice recordings. We also do various imagings. So we use DEXA to look at full body scan and to look at bone density. We use fundus images to take high resolutions of the retina, from which we can see the intricate structures of blood vessels that inform us also about cardiovascular health. We use ultrasound to look at fat in the liver and the carotids, also for cardiovascular health. And then maybe the most distinctive thing that we do is a bunch of many different multi-omic technologies. So we look at full sequencing of the human genome. We look at the microbiome, the collection of bacteria within us, both the gut microbiome and the vaginal microbiome. We do metabolomics, which looks at thousands of different small molecules that circulate in our bloodstream, which are key for our health. We look at protein levels, we look at RNA levels, and we have a novel assay that we developed for the immune system that can tell you the entire infectious history of a person in just a single experiment. In addition, we provide people with sensors that they go home with, smartwatches to track physical activity, sleep monitors to look at the quality of sleep, continuous glucose monitors. People log their diet, their medication, and all of their physical activity, and we also biobank samples that we can then do future experiments on. And so all of this we have done so far on a cohort of 12,000 people in Israel. And we are now in the process of expanding this, and I'm happy to announce that our next milestone is going to be to reach 100,000 people, and the first country outside of Israel that we are going to do this is going to be here in the UAE. We just received funding for this and are going to do it in a collaboration with Pure Health. And once we reach 100,000, we don't want to stop at that and reach additional countries and eventually do this profiling on 1 million people. So far, we have about 4,000 people who are healthy and about 8,000 people who have one of 40 different diseases. For lack of time, I won't have time to go into this, but the ability to standardize and compare everybody with exactly the same profiling is very unique and informative. There are also many different medical conditions that people have that are not necessarily disease, and this is the cohort that we're analyzing now. And in the remainder of the few minutes that I have, I want to give you 3 different examples of progress and approaches that we have been developing that are, some of them already are actionable and some will be actionable soon. And the first one is AI-based dietary interventions that we have been conducting. And so in a study that we published a few years ago, we showed that when you give people exactly the same food and you track their glucose levels continuously, as you can see here, people have very different responses when you give them exactly the same food. And we know that your glucose levels after you eat a meal are key for your weight management, for your health, for diabetes, for many different diseases. We then took this data and all the personal information that we collect about people and developed an algorithm that could quite accurately predict these personalized glucose responses to food. And we showed that when we do dietary interventions, we can take people who are diabetic or pre-diabetic, like the individual shown here, with many spikes in glucose levels, and offer a personalized diet to them that fully balances their glucose levels. This is 1 week of glucose profiling with exactly the same calories, only the green is when we personalize the diets for people. This technology has been deployed already to 100,000 people in Israel and in the US, and has been shown to reverse diabetes and prediabetes, and we have randomized clinical trials published on this. We now developed AI algorithms that can take dietary data and continuous glucose monitoring data, develop deep learning algorithms that now, using only diet, can actually reconstruct the continuous glucose profile of people, give that to dietitians or physicians to advise people. Another example is developing new probiotics to treat diseases. And here I'm talking about the microbiome. And in the microbiome, the cohort that we have is actually the largest that exists right now. And so we're using that to identify specific strains of bacteria that are important for a disease. Very briefly, if you focus here on the right, I'll show you, we look for variation in the genome of different bacteria in different people and associate that with different traits, in this case with BMI. And when we did that here, we were able to find a strain that, if you focus on the center panel here, by only looking at 2 versions of the same bacteria and separating people by whether they have the blue strain or the green strain, we could explain 2 points of BMI. That's a huge effect, more than the largest effect ever seen in human genetics. It explains 10 or 15 kilograms of body weight, and so we're now in the process of isolating these specific bacteria to try and see whether giving them as probiotics to people can actually help, in this case in weight management, and in other cases for many other indications that we are studying. And the final example is in biological aging. So here's one example of the metabolomic data that we took, the collection of thousands of different molecules in the blood that we measure. And from that, just by looking at that data, we could predict the chronological age of people, which you can see here is predicted quite accurately. But you can also see that the predictions are not perfect. In other words, at the top, we have individuals where the model looks at their blood data and thinks that they're actually older than they really are. And at the bottom are people that the model thinks are actually younger than they really are. And we found out that if you compare those people, those at the top and those at the bottom, the people at the top are actually in worse health condition. They have higher BMI, higher blood lipids, higher hemoglobin A1C, so higher glucose in the blood, higher blood pressure, and higher cholesterol and liver enzymes. And so this model that suggests that their metabolomic age is actually older and they're aging faster is also indicative of a worse health condition. We don't just have metabolomics data, we have data, as I showed you, that really measures the body very comprehensively. And so we took all of our data, divided it into 14 different systems of the body, and for each of these developed a model of a biological clock. We've shown that these models are actually clinically relevant, meaning that if, according to the model, you actually are aging faster, then you're at worse health condition, but not just worse health condition, but you're at a risk of developing a disease related to the biological clock that shows that you're older. So for example, if the clock that we built for insulin resistance shows that you're older, then you're more likely to develop diabetes and so on. And the final result on the biological clocks is showing a very big difference between males and females, with males aging pretty much linearly, but females, as you can see, between the age of 50 to 55 having an abrupt increase, which we could actually link to menopausal state, and comparing women at the same chronological age, pre versus post-menopause, we could see many different biological clocks indicating that post-menopausal women are actually with higher age and biological clocks. And so in closing, just to share again the vision is after seeing the immense value that we're able to extract with a cohort of 12,000 people profiled very deeply, we are now in the process of expanding this with the next milestone being to reach this profiling on 100,000 people, going to additional countries, the UAE being the first outside of Israel, which we hope to begin very soon, profiling additional diseases, additional body measures, and I think we are uniquely positioned to be able to build these types of AI models for human health, because we have the most deeply phenotyped human cohort, the only one also that is going to be international in several countries, allowing us to compare different genetics, different cultures, and so on, and the full stack ability to go from the ability to recruit the patients through the labs, the multi-omic profiling, and all the way to the data analysis. And I believe that this is the type of data that will really take us to the ability to disrupt healthcare and build the next generation of precision medicine. Thank you very much.